Thanks, Joe. But first, I gotta echo everything you said about Lieutenant Perkins. Brad is an amazing man, and is just. I'm so proud of him. He should be proud of himself. We should all be proud of him. He's trailblazing, and it's just you just can't say enough of the great things that he's doing and he shared, and I'm sure will continue to do. So thank you again. And just as a reminder to everyone, if you haven't signed in, I think we have, we have 118 folks, very, very good attendance today. Please sign in with who you are and what agency you're with. Thank you. So could not do this without our partner, Catherine Belmore, the great Catherine Belmore with the consulting firm HNTB. For those of you that don't know, Katie has been with our program for over, actually, 11, 12 years. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't do it without it. Joe, Paul, myself, and our team rely heavily on Katie for all things regarding the National Traffic Incident Management training and a lot of other activities and work in research and otherwise. So I've got to, yes, indeed, John, Katie is a champion and is always willing to help everyone too. So anyway, thanks for signing in. If you haven't, please do. So we're going to give you a brief update here of some of our findings, I guess, or outcomes from the recent October 20th through the 22nd symposium at the National Fire Academy National Emergency Training Center in Emmitsburg, Maryland. So here are some of the key items, if you will, or topics. The attendance, again, for our this was our sixth event at the National Fire Academy since 2014, and 41 states. That's a big deal. 41 states represented, 100, actually a little bit more than 100 were in attendance, and we spent a day and a half there. And some of you on this webinar today were fortunate enough to be able to, join us and have these discussions. To the left here, let's just see. I won't read them all to you. You've already heard Joe mention some of these in the initial federal highway update. Katie, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think that's good.
Okay, next slide. So again, feedback, lessons, follow-ups. You don't know what you don't know. The way we did the symposium, and this was two times in a row now, where we didn't have breakout rooms. We kept everybody in what they call, in one of their auditoriums in the main building where they had their classrooms. And it's stadium type seating, and I believe that auditorium had the capacity to cover or to hold over 200 folks. But anyway, our team, our guests there, were very active and engaged. That was one of the requirements. We wanted everybody to speak up and share their thoughts and ideas, concerns, challenges, whatever was on their mind. Obviously, we did have a formal agenda that you saw earlier in the topics slide a minute ago. But one of the things in that first bullet, participants voicing the need for TIM materials repository, is a very, very good suggestion. And I will say that thanks to the National Operations Center of Excellence, there is already a lot of our materials that are out there available to you, if you did not know this. The National Operations Center of Excellence has a tab, or if you will, on their site where there is a lot of our the TIM materials. Obviously, they archive our webinars and a lot of TIM related resources. The other one is our website, Federal Highways website, and I don't know if Adam, you or Katie can grab that link and put it in the chat pod along with yours again if you haven't already. Please. And the second bullet here, Robert Wright, who's become a great friend from the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, just in case you're not familiar with AASHTO. They are let's say an organization closely tied to the DOTs, especially the state DOTs, and obviously the U.S. Department of Transportation, federal DOT as well. And there are many leaders, obviously the state transportation engineers, et cetera, that are always engaging in different activities and discussions. Thanks, Katie. One of the things that Robert White suggested, and it also goes to the first bullet, is what you see there bolded, starting up a TIM community of practice. So Robert ran with that, and as you can see, we met, Paul, Joe, and I to talk with Robert, and voila, Katie. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Take back my voila. Anyway, it was approved. The TIM community of practice was approved, and there's more to come on that, obviously. But this is going to be a vehicle that we're going to take advantage of. For obvious reasons, like I said, the state DOTs in particular, interfacing and collaborating with AASHTO, many different committees there, and between Joe, Paul, and myself and others, and I'm sure Katie and Vishali and others, Grady Carrick, who's on here today, part of our contractor teams, will be able to collaborate as this TIM community of practice moves forward. It's basically going to be a committee, but it's being tied to AASHTO. And as I said, the state DOTs, every single one of them being members of AASHTO, gives us a lot more reach and a lot more potential as far as collaborating and expanding traffic incident management initiatives and all things TIM. Katie, okay. Do you want me to continue, or do you want to jump in?
You can do this one. I can do the next ones if you want.
That sounds good. So obviously, as it states right there, critical to a successful program is the relationship building. We've all heard it. We've all said it. TIM is all about relationships. And a lot of those relationships that you forge with your stakeholders in your state are lifetime relationships. I can testify that the years that I've worked in the National Capital Region of Maryland, DC, Virginia, it's a huge network of professionals in all the TIM disciplines that I can reach out to at any time and talk and just share resources and ideas. So there continues to be outreach to us, communications to us about the need for additional trainers. I think you heard Joe earlier mention train-to-trainer sessions are still very much on the front burner for a lot of states. People move on, retire, whatever the case may be. and they want to refresh their bench of trainers, if you will, to keep that valuable TIM training that you heard Joe mention is our first line tool for trying to ensure that our responders come home every night. Go ahead, Katie. And this outcome too from the NFA. This is very, very early in very early. I will say that Federal Highway, we're coordinating with the U.S. Fire Administration to conduct TIM Train the Trainer sessions at the National Fire Academy, National Emergency Training Center, NETC. That facility up there also houses the Emergency Management Institute, EMI, but the mothership up there, primarily U.S. Fire Administration, but it all falls, it all falls under FEMA. The site is a secure site with the academy, et cetera. Like I said, EMI, that all falls under FEMA, who, well, I guess you all know, FEMA falls under Department of Homeland Security, DHS. Just thought I'd share that. Okay, so don't shoot me. But this last bullet here, outcome, is a big deal, and hopefully we'll be able to sponsor some train-the-trainer sessions up at the wonderful historic National Fire Academy. So more to come on that. Okay, Katie, now it's you.
Yeah, so a couple other outcomes that we wanted to mention from the symposium. We have the new responder struck by reporting system that respondersafety.com or ERSI has out there. And we were talking about just what can we do to help increase awareness and make sure people know that that's out there and encourage use of it. So we are currently working on a slide that we'll just share out there, simple instructions. And I think it was Chris King had said that this is something he's been doing, and then he just shares it, at the beginning or the end of each of his coalition meetings. So we just wanted to provide a tool like that to help with the outreach, and just something simple that people can use. So that's kind of a low-hanging fruit thing that we identified. And then one of the other topics that we had a lot of discussion on was related to critical incident stress debriefings. And there was a discussion about how important that peer-to-peer support is, and just making sure there's an awareness that almost every agency or public response agency has some kind of a support or assistance program. And we recognize that this is a super important topic, although it's a little bit outside of traffic incident management. But we did go ahead, we found a really good short video. It was actually developed by the Washington State DOT that just touches on this. So we're adding that to the TIM responder training. And it's very short, and it's mostly intended to just, part of it is to help normalize and recognize that sometimes the things that you see are difficult, and it's okay to talk about it, and there are resources out there. So we don't really go any further than that, but we just added the video. It's about, I think, 1.5 minutes, and it's just an acknowledgement of this topic, and something to do that, because there's probably not a lot more that we would do on that topic, because we're not, critical stress debriefing experts, but we did want to include that and acknowledge it in the training. So I don't know, Jim, if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
No, I think you nailed it.
So, okay, so that was kind of our update. So the next thing we wanted to move into was just an update on the National TIM Responder Training Program refresh. I don't think anybody's surprised. We're getting a lot of questions about this. So Jim, did you want me to go over the lesson objectives, and then I'll turn it back to you?
Please do, Katie. Thanks.
So just a quick reminder or update to those of you that may not be aware that we're finalizing the update to the National Timber Responder Training Program. Right now, the existing program has 9 lessons, and then there's 33 lesson objectives. So that's the existing. What we've done with the 2024 update is we actually condensed some of the material. We moved lesson 6, the previous lesson 6 that covered command and basically ICS. That got combined with lesson 3 and renamed to communication and command. So now we just have the 8 lessons. And then we renamed lesson 7 to just be a little bit more accurate, and that's scene hazards and considerations. With this update is the first time we're making any changes to the lesson objectives. So we went from the 33 lesson objectives down to the 27 lesson objectives. And some of those are modified versions of the original. So we had been trying to keep those pretty consistent, but over the course of 10 years, there's just recognition some things have changed, some priorities have changed, and there's better ways of presenting some of the material. So that's really what's represented there. And our goal now is to have the 2024 update done by the end of February. I just put available by March 1st, but we'll probably be closer to the last week of February. The items that we're working on right now, one of the things that kind of paused us was that the 2023 MUTCD finally came out and is officially published. So we're updating all the references to make sure that that's all consistent. And I think if you noted what Joe mentioned earlier, we will be giving a presentation at the February Talking Tim, just touching on what's different with the 2023 MUTCD versus the old version. And I think Grady is also going to talk about the changes in the MUC. So we'll give more detailed information about that in the February Talking Tim. Since we went to the end of 2023, we're just making sure all the statistics are as current as possible, recognizing that we'll still hear things from people like, well, these numbers are old. Final numbers for total crashes is usually about 2 years behind. So I think 2022 will probably be the best we can do, but we'll make sure everything is as current as possible. And then the slide I have here is I know Jim's been talking about a lot, and there is an instructor-led virtual version of the training. And we basically combined that for the train the trainer. So all of the information, whether you're going to present the class in person, we'll have an in-person version of the responder training. And then we'll also have a instructor-led or a virtual version. And the difference is really just, like you can see here, is throughout we've identified ways where you can interact with the students and make sure that, it's hard when you're doing something online for 4 hours to ensure that you're maintaining the attention of your audience. So we've integrated that in, and all of it will be in the instructor manual. You'll have, directions for whether you're doing it in person or online, but then the 2 PowerPoints that you could pick either one or the other, depending on which one you're presenting. So we're just incorporating that together and making sure it's as simple as possible for all of our trainers to use the material. So those are kind of the things we're finalizing. We'll get it out there. There'll be a huge, announcement when it's all up on the TIM training site. And then we'll, start assisting the states as how they want us to, doing the outreach to the trainers themselves. So with that, Jim, I'll let you chime in if there's anything I missed and talk a little bit about NFPA.
Yeah, and I accidentally gave you the note down below. It's actually 1091. The pre-qualifications for firefighters and temporary traffic control. NFPA 1091 is what's being reopened.
Gotcha.
Sorry about that, Katie. It was my fault. But regardless, the National Fire Protection Association mothership, if you will, of all things standards for firefighters. This new standard 1010 is going to absorb several different standards, including 1091, which 1091 was launched, I want to say 2-3 years ago, maybe a little more, but about 2-3 years ago. And Paul and I were on the original committee, thanks to Steve Austin over at Emergency Responder Safety Institute. The 1091, after several, a number of years, was finally launched, like I said. However, we're interested in revisiting that. So we were delighted that NFPA opened it back up for comments. And so our team is reviewing NFPA 1091 again and comparing it to our eight lessons of the refresh, just to make sure we're comfortable that it's tracking pretty close, if not very close, especially as far as the learning outcomes or learning objectives are concerned. So that's all I wanted to say with that. NFPA 1010 is not out yet. That's not official. You may find it hard to even find. You have to be a registered member of NFPA to get access to it. And if you did want to get it, I think it would cost something to you, I believe, right, Katie?
If you want to actually download or order the hard copy of it. So I'm just gonna, because I can fix this for everybody and put the 91 in there. And
yeah, thank you.
And
so, 91, like I said, is one of several that are going to be incorporated into 1010. And why is this so important, you might ask? Well, it's important to us for sure at FHWA, but it should be to all of us, because in a way, as long as it's pretty close to, like I said, our learning objectives for the national training program, it represents a big milestone or a big deal, definitely in my humble opinion, because that means firefighters, career and volunteer, not just career and volunteer firefighters across this land will get TIM training when they go through academies, as well as outside training that they may be required to take, or even just the fire department chief, the chief of a fire department that wants to ensure that they get TIM training. So when 1010 comes out, it's a big deal for what we consider getting as close to as possible to mainstreaming or institutionalizing TIM training or traffic incident management across our land. Next slide, Katie.
all right.
Oh, yes. So goody. Go ahead, Katie. You do a better job on these. These are all new materials, products.
Yeah, so once the new materials are out, we probably need about a month and a half, and we will get all of the supplemental materials out. So those are the 5 tech lessons. One's on TMCs, one's on CAD integration. We have one on TIM data that also covers crowdsourcing. We have one on UAS, and then one that's super high level, intended for responders. Just what does it mean when we start seeing connected vehicles and automated vehicles? It kind of makes it clear that those are two different things. Sometimes you see them combined together, but they are two different types of technology or two different types of vehicles. So we have that one. And then the final one is a focus lesson. It focuses on rural TIM. So the first 5, the tech lessons, are each about a half an hour. And then the focus lesson on rural TIM is closer to an hour. So we'll have those supplemental materials available also on the website. And then we're hopefully building out by that time that you'll also be able to track them in the TIM training site. We're not going to set any goals for this, but we still want to just have a record of how it's being used out there. And then the next big thing that we've already started working on is a 1-hour refresher course. We recognize, we've been doing this for over 10 years now, and there are people that have not been trained since 10 years ago. And we know it's difficult for people to recommit to another 4 hours. So we wanted to provide another alternative that's this 1-hour refresher. So we'll have that available probably in the second half of 2024. And then that, those are the big updates we're working on right now. And that kind of leads into, I'm just going to skip ahead real quick, Jim, but that leads into with the NHI, where we're working really close with the National Highway Institute. One, to update the existing 4-hour program that's out there to match our update. So, the change in the lesson objectives and everything, all of that is reflected. I just want to note and make sure people will see that there's going to be a change in some nomenclature. NHI is referring to everything now as self-directed training versus web-based training. So I put that in there just to start, there's multiple things that it gets called, but we're going with the SDT. And then we're also adding those supplemental lessons to be available through NHI. I honestly anticipate that's where we'll get more people using those shorter lessons, but we want to have them available both places. And then, once the refresher is available, we'll have to start adding that as a new course to NHI. So that's a future thing, but that's kind of how those things tie together. We got to finish it, the in-person, and then the online version gets updated. So, Jim, did you want to talk about that last bullet there? I know you've been working closely on that with the.
Yeah, and thanks, Katie. It's very early, but when we discussed briefly this in particular, an official, I received an inquiry from an official in Alaska, of all places, but he is a trailblazer himself, and he basically asked me point blank if there was a way. He works out of the commissioner's office in Alaska for emergency management and transportation infrastructure, but he was asking me, what are the chances of getting the curriculum, the now referred to, as Katie mentioned above there, training, self-directed training. It's still the online training. It's still e-learning. Call it whatever you want to call it, but it's still, the online training that, as Katie said, is also being worked on to mirror the refresh, the 4-hour in-person. But basically, the gentleman asked me if it was possible to get that curriculum from NHI to, so that they could use it at their public safety academies in Alaska. And we had an interesting discussion prior to NFA in October, and it ended up that he came to the NFA event as well. And what the director of NHI asked me to do is to work on a memorandum of agreement, an MOA, for her to review and consider to, approve doing something like this. Normally, it's been a policy where NHI does not share their curriculum. They have now transitioned to a brand new learning management system, LMS. And but the director is very kind in considering this to happen. So we're slowly working on this, and if it comes to fruition, it'll just be another method, if you will, to get the TIM training to public safety academies, police fire academies, behind their firewalls, and offer TIM training to their new new cadet classes throughout the year, however many they offer, because every one of them is different. So very early on, this is something new, and we'll let you know how it turns out. MOAs, as you can imagine, take time, and there's legal reviews. There's a lot of steps to getting an MOA approved. So just wanted to share that with you preliminarily, just to know. So the above bullet, did we cover that, Katie?
No, go for it.
Yeah. You've heard us, if you've been on the NHI site, the EMS world, emergency medical services world. And by the way, our colleague Joe Tebow, who's our moderator today, Joe's retired firefighter of 40 plus years, captain, chief, so on and so forth. Joe is our go-to guy for all things fire rescue EMS. He leads the EV fire projects. He's leading several projects, including the one for EMS post-crash care. And so as you may know from previous presentations, from the National Roadway Safety Strategy that Secretary Buttigieg signed 2 years ago now, the EMS post-crash care, there's an acronym before the post-crash care that I always forget. But anyway, we have 2 action items in that initiative, and it has to do with emergency medical services, personnel, paramedics, and EMTs. And so it only makes sense that Joe is leading that. But the point here is the Commission on Accreditation for Pre-Hospital Continuing Education, CAPCE, that enables, with us having an agreement with them, which we do, it enables all those paramedics, EMTs that takes the TIM training, whether in person or online at NHI, that they can they print their certificate. They take the 4-hour course, print their certificate, and what we're working on is an electronic connection this time, because it's our second agreement with CAPCE, an electronic connection between the National Highway Institute and CAPCE for tracking those paramedics and EMTs that have taken the course, because they can get continuing education credits for taking the TIM training. And that's a big deal. And Joe's involved in several other initiatives in collaboration with the EMS community, the big associations, as well as NHTSA, by the way. Joe's the lead on that, and much more to come on that. So thank you, Joe.